The Institute for Supply Management's annual conference is fast approaching. On May 6th, thousands of industry professionals will gather in Nashville, Tennessee to network, exchange best practices, and discuss emerging trends. Here at Source One, we're getting ready for the year's premier supply management conference with our new series, ISM2018 Session Insights. Tune in every week to hear our experts discuss the topics that promise to dominate the conversation at this year's conference.
As procurement's veterans age and retire, experts everywhere find themselves asking how they can best utilize millennial professionals and prepare them to accept leadership roles. This week on ISM 2018 Session Insights, Source One Senior Project Analyst Jennifer Engel joins us once again. This time, she suggests that employee rotational programs could be the ideal method for nurturing diverse skill sets and turning today's millennial upstarts into tomorrow's procurement leaders.
So, Jen, how has the strategic evolution of procurement changed the mold for an effective procurement professional? What new skills do professionals require to set themselves apart?
Procurement isn't as simple as tactical purchasing anymore. Before, suppliers could be selected based on who could provide the materials at the lowest cost. With the evolution of strategic sourcing, the person or team involved in the sourcing process must be a subject matter expert in the product or category being purchased, as well as sourcing best practices. There's nothing boilerplate about strategic sourcing, and the more diverse a sourcing professional's skill set, the more value that can be driven for the organization.
And what is it about procurement that commands such a diverse skill set?
Procurement impacts so many parts of an organization. Aside from having an understanding of the direct and indirect materials being sourced, procurement's activities involve collaboration from quite a few other internal departments. So the first knowledge that they need is category specific. They need to understand the market trends and factors that impact pricing and demands in a particular category, and an awareness into emerging technologies and innovation for that category as well. An idea of what is critical and what areas can be negotiated is important. The other thing is they need a general understanding of logistics, understanding how products are transported and inventory is managed. Use this information to cut costs outside of the cost of the product or service. Procurement now has a focus on total cost of ownership, which takes into account shipping and other ancillary fees. The next department they have a hand in is finance. Procurement needs to understand the payment term and financial process. They have to collaborate with finance to make savings calculations simple enough to be repeated and approved, and they have to understand how savings and procurement impact integrated into the financials of the organization. After that, they have to have an understanding of how accounts payable works. They have to be able to streamline the source-to-pay process, implement process and workflows that prevent maverick spend, savings leak, or purchases not being made at negotiated or optimal quantities. Next, procurement has to have a hand in IT and data management. The biggest challenge when preparing for a sourcing initiative is collecting and cleansing category data. Sourcing professionals need to be able to navigate databases, understand spend, and extract what is needed to accurately take products to market and construct baseline documentation. The next, they have to have a hand in legal. During the negotiation and contracting phases, procurement has to understand the legalese needed to protect the business and which areas are available for compromise in exchange for additional value. Sure, legal can provide contract templates for use within negotiations, but knowing where leverage lies beyond pricing and business terms will lead to a more successful and faster negotiation period.
So what does the incoming generation of procurement professionals have that their predecessors didn't? And what are they missing?
This generation is coming in at the tail end of a major transformation in the procurement space. They didn't have to make the switch from tactical to strategic purchasing mid-career. They're already coming in with a strategic mindset. Operational management and supply chain focuses are more and more common at universities, and the process and analytical understanding is learned from the start. The gap still remains in the external knowledge that only comes with exposure and experience. You can teach financial principles and business law, but each organization and industry comes with variables that are best taught by watching, doing, and evolving. They are also missing the subject matter expertise, which is more common in today's purchasing landscape than in previous years. Sourcing and category managers now have specific focuses, whether on direct or indirect categories, and tailor their skills and knowledge to support these specific categories.
And what are companies doing to locate applicants with the right skill sets? And once they find them, how are they ensuring they mature to reach their full potential?
Recruiting strategies remain the same. It's the desired skill sets and talent pool that are evolving with time. Sourcing strategy is something that is learned over time, and the variant is that companies are now looking for candidates with the core skills to support growth and development. For example, in a role that will focus on strategic acquisition of MRO supplies, a company may desire a candidate with a heavy analytical and critical thinking background and trust that the MRO knowledge will be learned on the job. Diametrically, they may seek a candidate with warehousing background and teach the necessary skills for analysis and sourcing on the job. Of course, the ideal would be to acquire a candidate familiar with both, but those are not always as readily available and will not necessarily achieve better results. Cultural misalignment could still occur with a candidate who on paper has all of the necessary skills. The issue that companies face is figuring out where their training strengths are and striking that balance. If an organization is strong in analytical training, recruiting with a focus on subject matter expertise would yield more successful results than recruiting a strong analyst who never fully has the opportunity to be immersed in a category.
So what can companies do to nurture the necessary skill sets in their current employees?
There are a few things that need to be done to ensure that employees are best prepared for a role. The first is to set goals. From the start, employees should have an idea of what their goals are, both those that are quantifiable and those that are only able to be measured softly. Next, employers need to measure those goals. They should track progress against goals and measure them so that employees remain motivated and are aware of the areas that need additional work. And then they should provide feedback. Feedback is important both in formal evaluation settings and after each project or deliverable is complete. It's important to point out errors and allow the employee to correct those errors rather than fixing work behind closed doors. Even relatively small details like spelling errors or formatting issues should be brought to the employee's attention with opportunity to correct. Next, employers need to provide training. Internally led and external training should be made available to all employees. Organizational specific and general knowledge trainings both add value to an employee's overall development and help foster their confidence. And the last thing is they just need to provide general exposure. The more an employee can integrate themselves into the culture, goals, activities, and challenges of external departments, the better an understanding they will have of the overall organization and the better they can focus their individual efforts on adding value. More and more companies are recognizing the benefits of employee exposure in various sections of daily operations and have been forming formal rotational programs to give an employee opportunity to be involved in different departments.
So what exactly does a rotational program entail, and how does an employer know if that's the right model for their talent pool?
A job rotational program gives select promising employees opportunity to transition among various jobs within an organization. The scope of the program varies by company, but typically includes 3 to 6 months of exposure in each role, with 4 to 6 roles being transitioned throughout the duration of the program. The idea is to give the employee enough time to become acclimated and immersed in a particular role and experience the challenges and successes that a typical employee might realize. This is not a shadowing exercise. The employee should be expected to perform tasks within a department or focus area as though they are an employee of that department. Rotational programs are best for employers that desire multifaceted employees that have a deep understanding of overall company operations. Sure, that's something that every employer wants in theory, but rotational programs do desire an amount of investment. As employees move through jobs, there's obviously a ramp-up period while they learn the ropes. Organizations need to have available resources in each area to train and guide employees as they work through the rotation.
And what is particularly appealing about rotational programs for employers? What does it offer that another program for professional development and training might not?
Rotational programs are essentially a way to custom train an employee to be an expert in a particular organization. Siloed departments often lead to misalignment and misunderstanding, which can hinder collaboration. Employees that undergo rotational programs are able to understand the culture in each area and translate that culture to work for everybody in collaborative environments. It also prevents short-sightedness in decision-making, and professionals will make decisions that benefit or at least have no negative impact to a particular area. For example, if a sourcing professional is developing a deal that would create issues in finance to track and calculate savings, time within the finance department would give that employee the knowledge to recognize this and adjust strategy before friction occurs.
So you've covered why it's appealing to employers, but why is it appealing to employees, particularly millennials in procurement?
The knowledge and skills that employees gain through a rotational program is highly concentrated. An employee will be favorably exposed to multiple areas that can help further their career and foster growth. Additionally, rotational programs are often tailored more towards promising employees, with the end result being an achievable goal, often a promotion. Millennials change jobs more frequently than any other generation. A rotational program allows them to have their hand in many different buckets without the desire to jump ship. Depending on the organization, it may also allow opportunity for relocation geographically and travel while remaining with a single company. It's a great way to sustain employee interest.
What are some of the risks involved with implementing these programs, and what can employers do to make sure they don't run into these risks?
One risk is that the employee will become overwhelmed or bored within their new role. Employers need to ensure that workload is challenging enough, but will not be so stressful as to overwhelm the employee with new information and responsibilities. Another is that while the employee is on rotation, their original department may face some resource strain, picking up the slack the employee previously had. To mitigate this, employers need to be sure that the remaining responsibilities will not put these employees over capacity, and they may want to heavily monitor the transition period or consider hiring temporary labor. Finally, employers need to ensure that their departments involved in the rotation have bandwidth to support the employee being rotated in and not just throw them lower-level tactical work to help keep them occupied. The best way to foster a successful rotational program is to ensure that each leg of the journey has specific goals and objectives tied to it, and those objectives are being measured against.
And what return on investment can an employer expect from implementing one of these programs, and how can they be sure the programs have proven successful?
The proof will come in the success of the employee's work upon completion of the program. Procurement ROI will surely increase with the ease of collaboration amongst the employee and external stakeholders who they are now more familiar with. Additional value adds that were previously ignored or misunderstood, such as payment term adjustments, process automation, and innovative products, will drive costs down and increase the overall procurement ROI. A baseline of employee performance should be established in the form of qualitative and quantitative performance factors prior to the start of the program. That way, success can be directly measured based on this report. Participating employees should be asked to provide candid 360-degree feedback about the process, and as programs are developed and executed, adjustments should be made to focus on departments and roles that made the most impact so that each rotation yields greater results.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
You've been listening to ISM2018 Session Insights. Tune in next week to hear more from the procurement leaders at Source One. See you in Nashville.